Shalom. I am Prophet Jonathan Bridges, and welcome to Building Bridges, where we not only desire to build people, but to build myself in the things of Yahweh, and to build bridges or connections to people all over the world. All right, well, here we are. We are in part 2, right, of Why You So Thirsty. Is that correct?
Why are you so thirsty?
Why you so thirsty? So we're in part 2. And where we left off last time, we were talking about Samson. And what I was talking about with Samson was the fact that he was juggling 3 different relationships. He had a wife, he was dealing with a hoe, and he was also dealing with Delilah. And what we were breaking it down was that, what was that? I'm sorry, baby.
I said a witch.
Okay, a witch. Yeah, so he was dealing with all these different things in his life. And what we start to surmise is that Samson had an element of thirstiness to him. And where we left off, we were talking about the fact that he was a player. You know what I'm talking about, how black folks, we put a double emphasis on things by repeating it. And we were dealing with the 80-20 rule. And what I wanted to do right now was to give you an analogy of what the 80-20 rule is. Y'all know I like scenarios and analogies. Well, let's look at it like this. Let's think about it as a game show. And on this game show, the game show host, whose name is Mac, we'll just throw a name out there. His name is Mac, and he takes you into this room and closes the door, and he puts a 1-minute timer on the wall. And as you enter into this room, you see that there are 5 tables. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables. On each table, there is exactly the same amount of money on each table. There's $200,000 in all $100 bills on the first table, $200,000 on the second table, third table, fourth, and fifth table. So Mac, the game show host, he tells you, I'm going to give you this big duffel bag, and you got 1 minute to put everything you can into this bag. And when the time is up, you have to get out of this room and close the door. And whatever you drop on the floor, that stays in that room. So Max says, go. You run into this room. You got all this energy. You know, you charge. The crowd is cheering you on. Go for the first table. You get to the first table. You start shoveling it off. 200,000. You get to the second table. You charged up. You like, yeah, I'm moving. Now let me shovel it on off. I got in the second bag. 400,000. Moving on to the third table. You like, whoo, this is starting to get a little heavy. Let me shovel that one on in here. 600,000. You get to that fourth table and you like, oh man, the bag is almost full. So you start shoveling everything from that fourth table in there. You got 800,000 in your bag right now. The audience is cheering you on. The bag is so slammed tight. You pulling on the zipper. It's barely able to close. But then you look at the fifth table and quickly, immediately, for my hip hop heads out there, Lil Wayne comes to your mind and the song hits you. A milli. You start opening that bag back up and you start debating to yourself why the counter is counting down. 15, 14. You saying, if I throw some money on the top of this bag and not close it up, I can get some of the fifth table into this bag. But I got 4 tables here, 800,000 in the bag. So you run on over to the fifth table and you start trying to jam everything you can. Now money is piled up over the top of the bag. You grab the bag, and as you run out the door, 5, 4, 3, you dropping money everywhere. 2, 1, doom, close the door. The audience is cheering you on. The energy is pumping. You like, yes. But then you look back and you done dropped a lot of the contents of your bag inside the room. And what did Mac tell you from the beginning? He said, whatever you drop in that room stays in that room. So for my mathematicians out there, it was 5 tables, each table having 200,000 on each table. When he got to that fourth table, that was 800,000. That was 80%. 800,000. But the greedy and the desperate inside of you said, I want that last table. Even though you had enough money to get some things accomplished in your life and those that's connected to you, there was a part of you that said, I need what's on that last table. And that last table was 200,000. That was that 20%. As I was saying last week, that 80,000, that 800,000 is good. But when you greedy, you desperate, you look at that last 20,000 as saying, man, I need that. So the moral of this story right here is when he ran out of that room and he started dropping things, when Yahweh gives you that 80% to work with, and you're able to close that bag and secure that bag and leave out, this is a representation of what Yahweh has given you. But the greed that's in us, we try to force in more things, come on here, of what we feel like we want and not what it is that Yahweh says that we need, and the bag is left open. So what is this a representation of? This is a representation of whatever you're going through in your life, your relationships, when you try to jam in more than what Yahweh is saying that you need right now, you leave the bag open, come on here, and things start to spill out. Everything that Yahweh has given to you now is amalgamated with what you thought you needed. You just wanted it, and you start losing not only what you needed, but what you wanted is also left in that room. So the lesson to this story is, as the Apostle Paul said, come on here in the book of Philippians, he said, in whatever state I am in, I am content. Do y'all remember that scripture? And when you're content, that means that you're in a state of satisfaction. So Yahweh is saying to us that when I give you this 80%, I desire that you be in a state of satisfaction. When you're satisfaction, come on here. When you have satisfaction, that means you understand that Yahweh, you got all of what I need. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Come on here, Yahshua, you are all of what I need. Come on here. The Apostle Paul, he did not only say in whatever state that I'm in that I'm content, but he finished it off with this, with the verse that I'm sure every bricklayer in here knows. Come on here. Every scholar, Bible scholar knows, and even secular people knows. Come on here. For I can do everything with the help of Yahshua. Come on here. Who gives me strength. So this is what Yahweh is saying to us, and this is what Yeshua is saying to us right now, that I am giving you this 80% right now, and I want you to operate and function with it with your fullest capacity and be content in the state, whether it's a little or whether it's a lot. Yahweh got you. Yahshua got you. Come on here. The Holy Spirit is there for you. Come on here to sustain you. Come on here, as my wife said, to provide. Whew, is that all right?
All right.
Come on here. And as always, come on here. Don't forget to like these videos. It's right there at the bottom. Come on here. A lot of us are watching these videos. We looking at the views, the analytics, and a lot of y'all not hitting that button. It's right there at the bottom. Come on here. I know you're watching it because you're liking it. Just like it so we can promote this and get this out there. All right, so that's the 20% in relationships. So when you're thirsty, you're greedy. And this is what that analogy or that illustration that I gave you, that you were greedy. So that 20% look really good when you're not getting it. So we were talking about Samson with this. We were talking about his nature, right? So I guess we can agree that Samson's behavior, according to what we know about him, can be considered as thirsty and desperate. Remember, I said he had a wife, he had a hoe, and he was also working with Delilah also. So let us dissect this. So actually, the reason you are thirsty is because deep down inside, you are lonely. This is the part you've been waiting for right here, baby. You are lonely. And when you look at the word lonely, the definition that immediately comes to your head is you're sad because one has no friends or no company, right? So when you're lonely, this is what you automatically assume is that I'm sad because I have no friends and I have no company. But this is not the kind of loneliness that I'm talking about. But the type of loneliness that we're talking about here is when someone can be in a crowded room. Come on here. Or someone can have friends, because someone can have loved ones, but not be able to articulate that other part of you, what that other part of you is. Are you listening to me? Listen to me carefully. Not able to articulate what that other part of you. So you become desperate for someone to know this other part of you. So this kind of loneliness means that my current stance is that I have no one to turn to concerning this. Are you listening to what I'm saying? So you feel, or I feel, let me put this in my own shoes. I feel as though there is no one that I can turn to concerning this. And you have to ask yourself, what is this in your life? We're talking about Samson, but we're putting you in the shoes of Samson. What is this part of you that no one you can turn to for no one to help you? Think about it.
Yeah.
All right, take a deep breath. All right, let's keep going. So know that you're not able to turn to nobody concerning this part. So this is what's deep down on the inside of you. So this type of loneliness, what happens is when you're not able to turn to nobody, it leads to desperation. How many of us know that loneliness will make you do things that you are not normally willing to do? Or loneliness will make you do things that you would never normally do. So you got to check this. And if this goes unchecked and you don't have the tools, you're going to make decisions that if you were in your right mind, that you would have never, ever, 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 never, ever, never, ever had have made. So you end up in relationships, watch this, that's shrouded in this thick, dark, toxic kind of love out of this type of desperation. You become unevenly yoked with people with similar problems. Come on here, familiar spirits, as my wife said behind the camera. And remember what I told y'all in the last series that we did when we talked about yoked. When Yahweh yokes a husband and wife together, is for him to be able to harness that power, come on here and walk, come on here through the earth realm and do the things that he want to do. But this type of yoke right here, when you become yoked together, come on here with people that are not going in the right direction, you're both going the wrong direction. This is the enemy, and he's harnessing the power of what the two of you are doing, going into the wrong direction. Are y'all listening to me?
Listen.
Come on here. Put a like down at the bottom. Drop it down in the comments, my bricklayers. I'm listening. I don't want to be unevenly yoked. Come on here. So you'll be yoked with people with similar problems. For my note takers, I want you to write this down. I wrote it down because I didn't want to lose the thought. My note takers, bricklayers, where you at? Write this down. Desperation will make you go after the total opposite of not only what you want, but also what you need. Did y'all catch that? Desperation will make you compromise who you are just to get what you want. Those are the things that I want you to write down right there. So desperation, when you're in this loneliness, again, like I said, I want y'all to really get this. You're lonely because you have no one to turn to concerning this part of you. And when you're in loneliness for a long time, you become desperate. So when you're desperate, you start to compromise. And what are some of the things that we start to compromise? We start to compromise our integrity. We start to compromise our character, and we start to compromise our principles. Are you listening to me? And not only will you compromise these things, if you're compromising those, you'll also compromise for money. Are you listening to what I'm saying? So I keep repeating this word compromise, and y'all know, as I said to y'all earlier in the last message, I'm a logophile. The word compromise, by definition, it means to accept standards that are lower than desirable, right? That's the first definition. So you accept standards that are lower than desirable. Problem number one. Definition number two of compromise: cause to become vulnerable or function less than effective. So this is why Yahweh is trying to really get through to us bricklayers. Come on here. All of those that's listening to this message, come on here. He don't want us in a position where we're thirsty for things that we want that's not connected to him. Is because we start to compromise. We cause ourselves, as the definition says, to become vulnerable or function less effectively. Yahweh don't want us to function less effectively. When my wife spoke last time, she spoke about the integrity of a building. And when we talk about the integrity of a building, we talk about, come on here, is that building compromised? When a building is compromised, that means that something, come on here, has been fractured or broken within it, which means that it makes it easy for that building to collapse. So Yahweh wants to make sure that our integrity, come on here, is in place, and that we're not vulnerable, and that we're not open to what the enemy is trying to do to us. Are you catching that right there? Compromise also means to settle a dispute by mutual concession. What does that mean? So a similar thing, the similitude of that is that it means to make a deal. You see that in your notes, baby? Yeah. It means to make a deal. So what the Spirit is saying to us right now, what Yahweh is saying to us, is that when we're compromised, we are put in a position where we want to make deals. Look at this. It says to find a middle ground. It says to give and take. So what are we talking about when we're talking about finding a middle ground? What we're talking about is that the enemy is working against you to have a middle ground in your mind. Somebody got to be listening to me on this part right here. The enemy wants to make a deal. The enemy is like, let's make a deal. The enemy is like, you give and I take. Are you listening to what I'm saying? My bricklayers, are you listening? So we don't want to be in a position where we're compromised because we're desperate and lonely. So let's look at another person who was compromised. I want to go here briefly, but we're still dealing with Samson. I want to deal with Judas. And if you can go with me real quick to the book of John, chapter 12, 3 through 6. And I'm just going to start reading. Book of John, chapter 12, 3 through 6. It reads, "Then took Mary a compound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the odor of the ointment." I'm sure y'all know this story. "And then saith one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him, why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? This he said," this is what he said, "not that he cared for the poor," are you hearing this? "But because he was a thief and had the bag and bare the bag that was therein." So Judas, he did not only not care for the poor, he was a thief, and he was handling the bag of the disciples. He was the one handling the money. And not only was he handling the money, he was stealing from the bag also. So drop with me real quick down to John 13, 21, and then we're going to skip to 26 through 27. When Jesus had said thus, he was troubled in his spirit and testified and said, verily, verily, there he is repeating it. I say unto you, say unto you that one of you shall betray me. Yeshua, dropping down to 26. Yeshua answered, he it is that whom shall give sup when I have dipped, and when I have dipped the sup, after he gave it unto Judas, for the Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, and after the sup, Satan entered in onto him. Oh man. It was getting so juicy right there. And you know what? I really wanted to, this is why I'm loving the 20 minutes. I'm going to tell you why. Have you ever watched a really good movie and then the commercial pop up right when you like, what's finna happen next? This is what I like. I like that we're going to leave you on a cliffhanger. Where was he going with this? Judas, he was a thief. Come on here. He was stealing from the disciples. Then Yeshua, come on, he was talking about this, where you was going, John. This was getting so good. I'm glad you was holding on. To be continued, like to leave you on the cliffhanger right there. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this 20 minutes. Come on here, this little nugget. Come on here. Popped it on into your spirit. Come on here. We dealt with the 80-20. And when we get back into this next week, we're going to deal a little more about what we were talking about with Judas Iscariot right there. And we're going to really break this thing open. Well, if you have enjoyed this, I pray that you just do one thing for me, is that you pass it on to somebody that you feel needs this, or just pass it on. Be the salt of the earth and allow them to be the salt of the earth. Come on here, so that we can bring back our people to the position that they should be in. Yes. And as the Apostle Paul said, in whatever state that I'm in, I am going to be content. So I hope that you enjoyed this message. Remember, every week we upload a message on Mondays. And also, I can't forget, we have Wellness Wednesday starring my wife. Come on here, Eve's Garden. I want y'all to tune in to that. It ain't nothing but another little nugget. I'm talking about no more than possibly 2, maybe 5 minutes. Come on here, people. I know you got 2 or 5 minutes to just tune in. She's doing some awesome things on that platform as well. I really want y'all to check her out. That's why I'm really pushing it. And we are a team. We yoked together. Come on here. Yahweh got us. And we moving through this demonstration. Are you understanding me? Bricklayers, I love you. Thank you for being here. Everybody else that's listening, I love you. I appreciate you. And as always, shalom. Whew.